Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Powerful Women Rising podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Snow. Super excited to talk to you today. I'm also super excited that it's summer. I don't know if it's summer where you are, but in Colorado, it takes a long time for summer to get here. I don't know why. We have these weird non-season seasons that are you think winter's over, but it's really not. And then you think it's spring, but then it snows, and it just feels like it takes forever for summer to get here. And I am one of those people that would rather be hot and in the sunshine than not hot and in the clouds. So I am very happy. I'm just celebrating the sunshine today. And I am thrilled to bring you this episode of the podcast. And I have practiced saying this guest's name over and over and over again, and I'm still going to screw it up. Every time I look at it, I want to say Sarah Raanan, but she told me how to pronounce it, and it is Raanan. Raanan. I think I said it right. I'm sorry, Sarah. I love you. I really practiced. I really, really did. Anyway, Sarah is a business coach and a content creator and a lovely human. I just really enjoyed talking to her about social media and her take on social media. And I'm excited for you guys to hear this interview and find out why immediately after the interview, I deleted my TikTok account. So Sarah is a business coach. She offers a 4-month deep dive coaching program for entrepreneurs, and she also helps solo business owners establish a clear and doable path towards building a profitable and organized business through accountability, support, system strategies, mindset work, all the things that we need without the stress and overwhelm. She's got a super cool free Facebook group called Get Exposure and offers a lot of helpful tips and strategies for how you can increase your visibility on social media and beyond. She has guest experts that come in and teach about various topics. And I know we're all very Facebook grouped out, but hers is exceptional. So check that out when you're done listening to this interview, and then hop over on Instagram where I will be chatting about this topic all week and would love to hear your input. Here is my interview with Sarah Raanan. Hello, Sarah. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah,
Nice to
so
be here.
excited to chat with you today. So tell everybody a little bit about you and about what you do.
Okay, sure. So, I am a certified business coach, and I'm also a content marketing specialist. So I have these two hats that I wear that go together very beautifully because it's all about helping coaches and consultants and also charities to achieve steady growth, increase their exposure, and get clarity on their messaging. So what I do works whether I'm coaching people or whether I'm creating the content themselves. I find that very often when people establish a business or an organization, they're in such a big hurry to get started. They hit the ground running and they find themselves kind of 2 years down the line into a process with no systems and no strategies. So that's where I come in.
I love that. So when you talk about content marketing, I think a lot of times when people hear that, they think social media, but it's more than that, right?
Oh gosh, yes, very much. So, that's why when I was looking to say what it is that I do, I started off saying content creator, and that very much conjures up just like social media. And then I kind of moved over to calling myself content marketing strategist or specialist, still playing around with the title a little bit, because what I'm trying to get people to understand, when I'm looking for new clients, is that like you said, it's not just about social media. Obviously that's a really big part of it, but awareness and growth comes through so many other channels, which I think we'll talk about when we start getting into the nitty-gritty of things, but networking, for example, just connecting with humans, not being obsessed by like how many posts I want to put out a post every single day, how much like the obsession with creating tends to blind people and take their eye off the ball when it comes to what are your goals, what's your vision for the company, all those kind of things. So yeah, I get very passionate about it's not just social media.
Yeah. And honestly, I am kind of picky about who I have on the podcast to talk about social media or even just content marketing, because like you said, when you brought up networking, one of the things I talk about a lot is like networking is not just going to networking events and meeting people at networking events. Like networking at its core really is about connecting with people. And you can do that on social media. You can do that on your email list. You can do that on a podcast, speaking on stage. Like there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I'm always interested in finding the people that are like, this is the way that you can do it and actually create a real, genuine connection, as opposed to the people who are posting the like very obvious engagement posts or like, you have to get rid of one. Which one is it? Pajamas, coffee, tacos, or TV? Like that. I mean, I guess you could post that and still create a connection,
Now
but
I'm trying to think which one I'm getting rid of.
I know that was a hard one. So I like the idea of finding ways to actually create real, genuine connections through content, which typically feels like a one-sided conversation. So I'm excited to get into that with you today for sure. So we're talking today specifically about social media, but I assume a lot of the things that we're going to talk about apply to a lot of different content, whether it's blogs or emails or all kinds of things. So let's just start off with, in your experience, you've been doing this for a while. Are there some common mistakes that you see entrepreneurs making when it comes to social media in particular?
There are, and I made a list and I tried to kind of like narrow it down, and it's really difficult. It's like, there's so much that I want to like talk about. So like, obviously I'm going to focus on a few, but just with the caveat that there's so much more to it, that there's so much to kind of that I feel I want to kind of expose, I guess is the right word. So many misconceptions that are out there, or things that people believe about social media that were true in 2017, things like that. But something that I see a lot is that, people generally, when they're using social media, will very often have one or other of this problem, which is self-promotion. They'll either be doing it too much. It's like, buy my stuff, look at me, blah, 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 and never be like doing the social part of social media, being sociable, behaving like a human, not interacting with anyone else's posts, not even responding to people that are commenting on yours. So it's all like me. And then I see the other end of the scale, which is people that are terrified of selling. You have that phrase salesy weirdo, which always makes me laugh, because so many people are terrified of being salesy. I don't want to be too salesy. And you should be, I don't like to use the word should, but I recommend that, when you're putting posts on social media, around 30% of that content should be sales based, because you need to remind, you're in a business, it's not a hobby. You need to remind people that you have a service, you have a product, you have something to sell, and make it super easy to do that. I mean, that's part of this whole mistake kind of tagged onto it as well, is that even if you think that you're selling, you're not. Like, you've got some call to action that's like link in bio or something, and then the link isn't there, or it's broken, or you say, go check out my website. Like, who's it? Like, or feel free to reach out to me. Like, all these kind of things. You're not kind of seeing the sales process through to the end. So that, in a nutshell, standing on one leg is the first thing that I see a lot of. And then very often when I sit down with clients and we talk about content creation, and I talk about this idea of repurposing, it's like I'm speaking a different language. So, we talk about like, why would you want to reinvent the wheel all the time? Like, you have written this amazing 2,200 character piece that you've refined and everything. Okay, so great. So now, first of all, repurposing isn't just like putting it out and it's going to go on LinkedIn and it's going to go on Facebook. It's also like, okay, how can you take, right, we're recording a podcast now. So you're going to take this podcast and you can make little sound bites from it and you can make quotes from it of something really deep and meaningful that I said. And you know, like there's endless ways to repurpose. And I see people putting so much, not just effort, but like emphasis on this one post, hit send and like sit back and wait. I'm like, I got crickets from that. It's not working.
Yeah.
And that makes me so sad because like you've put all this effort into it. Now go put it somewhere safe. Like I'm very, very obsessed with using Trello. Store everything that I write there and make notes on what I've done with it. This was a reel that I created. Now I'm going to make it into a carousel. Or this was a carousel. Now maybe I'll put it on my blog, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I work with my clients to get them into that habit of, you know, once you've poured your heart and soul into this piece, get the most you can out of it. And if you posted it last July, it's time to revisit.
Yeah,
And
that's one of the things that I learned over time doing multiple different podcasts is how to use this like in the most maximum way. Because my first business as a dating coach, I had a podcast. It was called Love Starts Here, and I did like 90 episodes. They were great. And over time, I mean, I did it for several years. And so I did get a good listener base and it worked well. But I could have done so much more with it that I didn't even realize. And so now it's like, I do the audio, but I'm like, if we're going to have this conversation anyway, why not record the video? Right. I mean, It's not any extra work for me to push record. Then I can put it on YouTube. Then I can break it up into reels. I can take the transcript. I can turn the transcript into a blog if I want to. I can take quotes out of the transcript and put those into graphics. So I love that idea of working smarter and not harder, because otherwise you feel like, I feel like, especially in content creation, it sometimes feels like every time you sit down to do it, it's like you have to have some new great idea. Like, what's something I've never said before? What's something no one else has ever thought of?
I know. And it's like, I have clients that will say, but I've said that. Like, where did you say it? I said that on my story last week. And how many people saw it? Like 50. And did they remember? Did they actually see it, or was it just scrolling while they were like brushing their teeth or something? You've got no idea. And that's the whole idea of marketing anyway, is to repeat the message. I mean, I go off on a very big tangent about that, but the idea of like, you know, what you just said about from video all the way through to, you know, the however many pieces, let's say you create 8 pieces of content, is to have some kind of workflow just written down in Trello. That just reminds you, because you can forget. It's like, you know, sometimes I forget what I like to eat. So I have like a whole idea of like menu ideas of like, what do I like to have for dinner? Because you forget. So having an actual list of, okay, we're going to start from video, or you might be starting from a blog post. It doesn't matter. Like, you're starting from written or you're starting from video, and you can take it both ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if I had to only pick 3 mistakes, my third one is about trying to be Nutella. I can't remember where. I think I saw it on a t-shirt. It's like, you can't please everyone. You're not Nutella. Because most people do love it. And it's like, another thing that I hear a lot is, oh, I don't want to put people off. I don't want to be too controversial. I don't want to polarize. I don't want to. No, I'm not saying, you know, like polarization is a good thing, but that idea of if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. No one understands what you stand for. Like, the fact that I could say to you that I remember you talking about don't be a sleazy weirdo, you know, like, that's obviously, it's stuck in my mind, and it leads to other connections. Like, I remember other things about you and the way that you approach business and the way that you approach networking and marketing. It kind of sets off like a train of thought. And that's the really important thing. It's like you do need to be repeating some kind of message of what your values are, what you stand for, and how you work. Like, I'm very anti-hustle culture. I'm very anti this obsession with productivity, like you're saying before, like working smarter rather than harder. I'm very happy if I can close my laptop at 4 o'clock and be done. Great. But if it happens, or if I happen to have a day where it's just not happening, I know to like just call it a day and go do something else. Like I used to think that I had to produce sit at my desk from 9 to 5 and just produce. So those are things that I will talk, when I'm really in the swing of creating content for my own social media, which doesn't happen an awful lot anymore. Those are the kind of things that I will get ranty about, that I will talk about, this idea of burning the candle at both ends and sacrificing, and is just not a healthy way to be. And I talk about mental health a lot, and people know that. People that have been following me for a while will know that. And people that are new and come into my world, I need to keep repeating that so that the new people also know.
Yeah. That makes me want to ask you a question that I did not prepare you for. So if you're like, I'm not answering that question, go away. I was stalking your Facebook in the middle of the night because I don't sleep. And I saw a post that you did not too long ago about the fact that you had kind of been MIA for a while. You live in Israel, and I know we have several clients in the Powerful Women Rising community who also live in Israel and have struggled with this. Like, I feel like I should be working. I should be doing something. I don't want to. I have no motivation. My heart's not in it. Should I just quit business? Like, what's going on? And I just want to ask you about that, because in the world of content creation and content marketing, and really just marketing and sales in general, I think we tend to feel like it needs to be consistent and or constant. Like, there's no way I could take 2 weeks, let alone 2 months, off of posting on social media, emailing my list, going to the networking events, doing the thing. Like, my whole business would fall apart and the world would just end. So can you talk a little bit to the people who feel like who constantly feel like they're not doing enough, or they need to keep doing more, or they're going through something that they're like, I really don't want to be doing this right now, but I have to? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I could talk for I could literally spend an hour diving, because you've like, every time you said another word, it's like, it's
I know that was a
just
big question.
there are so many layers to it. I mean, first of all, when it comes to like finding yourself living in a country that's at war, when the week before I was literally doing a guest expert session in someone's group about increasing visibility for your business, and the next week I was like sitting on the floor, like completely non-functional, like that change all of a sudden in itself, like, had to just kind of adjust to that. And I think also, like, it's going to be very individual, because the way that my business works is I'm either working with one-to-one clients who need my input, and we have the Zoom calls and everything, or I'm working for those clients where I'm creating the content for them. So in the case of the clients I'm creating content for, I prioritized those and kept those ticking over. And one of the clients is an Israel-based charity that is working with wives of fallen soldiers and all different things like that. So they totally understood if I was just having a day where I just wasn't able. So I'm saying that, that's my particular situation. That worked. We were able to carry on with that. And I was also able to just put a pause on my one-to-one coaching, work with my current clients, and just stop pushing the marketing. I didn't want to completely wind down and have people forget about me. So I did a couple of things. I put out a post on Facebook, the one before the one you saw, which says I'm taking a break. Giving and I just felt I didn't do that to be dramatic. I did it from the point of view of I want to inspire other people to do the same thing, because they know how prevalent I am on social media. And I took a 6-week break. I didn't know how long it was going to be. Just waited until I felt like I had kind of like a renewed sense of energy. And I think, this doesn't just apply to this situation. I think you have to be able to, what's the phrase? The minimum viable product, that phrase. So you have to be able to figure that out according to your your job, your work, your business, your company, what is that for you?
Mm-hmm.
So I described what mine was, and thankfully that worked. And I thought, what do I need to do in order to keep things ticking over? Okay, so I let my mailing list and Facebook people know I'm taking a break, but I want to keep going with, I have like an online networking group that I belong to. I want to keep going with that, just having conversations with people. I want to make sure that I'm still talking to humans. I don't want to completely isolate myself. That was
Mm-hmm.
really important for me. I feel like you asked me so many other interesting questions, but that was the bit that like I really focused on.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Like I said, I know I didn't prepare you for that question. It's just when we were talking about it, I know there's so many people who can relate, and not necessarily because we're living in the middle of a war, but we all have personal things going on and things that are unexpected and things that are hard to get
Yeah, and
through.
it's and you give yourself grace and have compassion for yourself like you would for a friend. If it was a
Yeah,
friend, you would say, give yourself a break, and there's no such thing as should. I
yeah,
should be posting every day. No, you shouldn't. There's no should. What feels right? What feels doable right now?
yeah. Yeah. And that was one of the things I was telling the women in my group who were struggling with that is like the post itself is really not that big of a deal. The question is, what is the intention and the energy behind the post, right? Because you can tell
Oh,
the difference
yes.
between someone who sits down and creates a post because they're like, oh my gosh, I just had this realization or this experience, and I want to share it because this was such a good lesson and this is really going to benefit people. And, I'm sure someone can relate, like someone who's sharing from that space, as opposed to the person who sits down at their computer and is like, I would literally rather be doing anything than sitting at this computer, but I have to make a post, so here it goes. Like, you might as well just not even bother. You think we can't tell, but we can tell.
No, we really can. And also, like, if you're posting from a place of desperation, I remember someone that I was following, and I felt really sorry for her because she kept talking about these 3 slots that had opened up for her. She was like doing a copywriting service or something. And she kept posting more or less the same photo of herself and more or less the same text, trying to kind of change it up a little bit. Um, and it just sounded like I need to get these people through I need to get these clients on the books or my business is going to close down. That
Right.
was what I read between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of like, if you're feeling like that, put your pen down or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Step away from the keyboard.
I think we have a tendency, especially as entrepreneurs, to, like you said, feel like if I'm quote unquote done at 4 o'clock, I can't just stop. Like there's always something more I could be doing. And that something more that I do might be the thing that gets me my next client. Or we think like we have like weird sales and marketing FOMO. Like if I don't post anything today, today was probably the day that so and so was going to see my post and finally be like, yes, this is the time to work with her. And I mean, sometimes that line of thinking is helpful. Like sometimes I tell my clients who are like me, who like sign up for networking things. And then when the time comes, they're like, I don't want to leave the house. I'm like, what? I'm like, what if you knew your next client was at that networking event? Then would you go? And they're like, well, yeah. So that can be helpful in that sense. But
Yeah.
overall, we tend to have this feeling of like, if I'm not everywhere, I'm going to miss out on like the big thing that's going to make all
Well,
the
that was going to
difference.
be when I was listing mistakes that people make. That was one of them. It's like trying to be everywhere,
Yeah.
trying to be everywhere versus putting all your eggs in one basket. It needs to be somewhere in the middle. There's this whole talk of like the 80-20 rule, like pick a platform and try and just like be mostly there, but at the same time, not just there. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you try and be on Instagram and Facebook, and let's just name all of the platforms. And I opened up a TikTok account at one point, and I just, what am I doing? Practice what you preach. You cannot, unless you have a team of like, she's going to be my TikTok girl, and that one's going to do my X. Then great, you know. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to outsource it to someone you trust, that's something entirely different. But if you are a one-man band, there's no way. You just the well will run dry very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so back to social media. We
Mm.
get really obsessed with hashtags and tags and sharing and likes and
Mm.
comments. Part of that, I think, is because we are so conditioned that like you have to trick the algorithm and you have to do all the things
Yeah.
that the algorithm likes, and that's how you're gonna go viral. And we think that going viral also equals making money, which actually doesn't, but that's probably a whole other episode.
It's another hour.
So, how much should we be caring about that stuff? Or are there like one or
Yeah.
two of those things that we should actually focus on, or does any of it matter?
Brilliant, brilliant question. And like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, there's so much to say. I seem to say that about everything though. But again, I think early adopters to Instagram back in the day, when if you used Instagram in 2017, 2018, before it was like severely monetized, hashtags was a whole different ball game. It used to be such a good way to get discovered online. And I used to subscribe to this like mailing list every week. Should like, recommend hashtags and everything. And now they basically benefit people that can pay to promote the posts.
Mhm.
So you used to be able to, I had to write this down because I couldn't remember the difference. The feed used to be chronological. So you'd be able to click on a tab that said recent and see like recent trending posts in that hashtag. And I still follow hashtags, but back in the day I followed a lot of hashtags. You don't click on recent anymore. You now see top posts. So they're prioritizing the people that have gone viral, have the big followings, the influencers, which putting priority with the people with the money and the fans. So the smaller creators were shut out. And at that point, people started kind of realizing this isn't working like it used to. And that's really the theme of social media, especially a platform like Instagram. I once created a course, I put my heart and soul into it during some lockdown, 2020 or something. And it was called Pump Up the Gram. Best name, loved it. And it was just like, this is everything you're ever going to need to know. And it literally, like 2 weeks after I launched it, the whole platform, just everything changed, everything. And then it was the start of everything just changing all the time. So, in terms of hashtags, what was the original point of hashtags? It was to help us be able to like kind of find things and categorize things, and to teach. There are different algorithms in Instagram. I won't get boring about it, but you've got the algorithm of what you like to see and the algorithm of what are you creating and where are we putting you. So there's like two different things going on there. So Instagram needs to know, who are you as a creator? What do we do with your posts? Well, that now happens through just the content that you're writing. If there's a caption, yes, you can still put a hashtag in front of it if you want to make it look orderly. Or you can create a caption that has all the keywords that you want to make sure that if you're going to write a post about the algorithm, make sure that it's got, content algorithm, like make sure that you've put your keywords into that caption and it just does the same thing.
Okay.
So yeah, basically they have been stripped of their power.
So just forget it. Just post what you want to post.
Ish. Make sure that you, like you said, what's the point of this post? What do I want from this? What do I want people to learn from this? Or what impressions I want to give? What I want to do afterwards? All of those things are important. What you write is important, but we were trained, especially on Instagram, to become to have this like need for see me, like me, share me, save me. And we can't do all of those. So what's your point with this post? Do you want to make this a super shareable post? Okay, so do that. Do you want to make it one of those posts that people are like, oh, I've got to save that? So make it a savable post. Like have a goal for like because you cannot put everything and the kitchen sink into every single post. There's plenty of time. There's endless posts that you can create. So like getting really, really specific. I find, and I do really struggle with that. I'm like, oh, but I want to also say this. No, just say this one main idea and just focus on making it shareable or entertaining or savable, something that you want, like you're going to send to your friend in because that's also a share.
Mm-hmm.
You may not see a public share, but someone may have like shared it in a DM to a friend because it was really funny.
Right.
And then you've got the idea of tagging people as well. So I think a lot of people don't realize when you share someone's post to your story, they can't always see that you've done that unless you tag them. And a lot of people don't realize that. So they'll be all nice and share someone's post, and then they'll get all kind of, oh, she's so rude that she didn't say anything. She hasn't seen it. You need to tag her and just say and write something. Don't just share the post, write why you're sharing. Like put some meaning behind it and make sure the other person sees it. I see people using tagging to like tag big accounts in the hope of getting attention. Really not worth it. It's just annoying. You'll probably get blocked. Only actually tag someone if it's relevant. Like if you are talking about them, sharing on their posts, or you had some kind of collaboration together, then it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, like the most healthy thing that you can do for your mental health and sanity is to really stop caring so much about all the likes, because so many people say like the likes don't pay the bills.
Right.
Yeah, you might have had a reel go. I had a friend who had a reel go viral. She ended up with all these followers that were completely irrelevant. They were not her ideal clients, and she had to like try and go through and remove them all. You also don't want that.
Yeah.
So yes, it's just things to think about.
This is why we all need to hire you.
Not all in one go, though.
Link in the show notes. Take turns, maybe one a week. This week is just last names A through D.
Exactly.
But seriously, though, because I think like I've always thought I was pretty good at social media, and most of my lead generation comes from social media. But I also realized that, like you said in the beginning of this interview, like when we first start out, we're just like putting stuff out there and like sort of, we like to say we're putting stuff out there and seeing what works, but we're not actually really even seeing what works because we don't even know like what analytics should we be looking at? What do the analytics mean? What should we be tweaking based on the analytics? Like there's not really a strategy. There's just like vomit. Like here's all my ideas and my thoughts and a cool thing that I made in Canva, and and it works sometimes. But then I think like a couple years, maybe 1, 2, 3 years into the business, you're like, this is the place that I'm at right now. Like, do I have an actual strategy, or am I just like doing things? And yeah, it's working, but could it be working much better and more efficiently? Probably. So, and I think we need people like you because we need to find that balance between like, how much do I obsess over the analytics versus how much do I just say what I want to say? And I think you help people find the balance between like, yes, be you, be authentic, create genuine connections, say what you want to say, and also have some strategy behind it.
Yes. I'm happy that you're recording this.
You can use it for a commercial if you want.
That's really good. I like how you talk about balance, because balance is really that it is such a big deal. Because like, I can't remember what we were talking about before. I'm like, you've got this one end of this scale here, and then this other extreme over here where you actually really need to be is somewhere in the middle, which people think like they're scared of the middle because it sounds mediocre, but no, it's the healthy place where we don't go cuckoo.
Yeah. You can always locate the day that I spent like 12 hours on content creation, because for a month after that, my content is like very consistent and planned out and cute and strategic and wonderful. And at the end of that month, then there's nothing because I haven't spent another 12 hours on content creation since then. Please help me, save me. Okay. Before we wrap up, is there anything that I mean, this is such a big topic, social media, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But when we're talking particularly about trying to increase visibility, but doing it in a way that is authentic and genuine, is there anything big hanging out in your mind that we haven't talked about yet that you may want to make sure that you say to people?
Yes, and it might not be what you're expecting, because like there are so many things I could say, but there were a lot of people pushing this idea of having content pillars. I'm not sure if that's something that you've been working. So I was, for a long time working with these content pillars, the ones that I was told that it has like a, God, what's it called? A mnemonic of peace, PIECE. So promotional, inspiration, educational, a conversation or connecting with people, and something entertaining. And I was like rotating between these things, between these topics, and had my Trello boards with all the different titles. And every time I have an idea, I'll be like, oh, does this fall under education or inspiration? And trying to figure. And I got very frustrated with it pretty quickly, because we don't exist in a vacuum. We don't have our thoughts in a vacuum. It's like, it's not only inspirational, it's also educating people, especially if you're writing long form content. And it's also bringing people closer to you. So it's forming a connection. And maybe I put a joke in there, so maybe it's entertaining as well. So like, I really, really got fed up with doing that. And I thought maybe that would be a valuable way of, saying where I've made the switch, in case there are people that are also still like doing the same kind of thing. Because I do see it around a lot.
Absolutely.
So I always like to credit my sources when I remember them. I do not remember who talked about this, and I can't find it. But it was just a completely new way of looking at content creation, where you're thinking about, okay, why am I creating content? I'm creating content in order to bring more people into my world, make sales at some point, but also nurture my people and, retain that loyalty and that connection with people who hopefully have become your raving fans and want to stay in your world. And those could be people that have bought from you or haven't bought from you, may buy from you at some point, whatever. So you break it down into leads, sales, and nurture. And like I said before, like sales is taking up around like 30% of the content that you're creating. And when you break it down like that, and you're looking at, okay, like 50% of the time I need to be ish. I don't love numbers, but I have like a vague idea of, okay, 50%, that's quite a lot. So generating demand, bringing in needs, bringing more people into my world. How am I doing that? And it gets you thinking, again, I created my 3 columns, and then I was like, okay, if I want to be bringing people into my world, generating demand, what does that look like? If I want to be, selling, that's not just call to action, click on the link to buy. What does selling look like? Sales is so much more than that. And the same thing with nurturing, very often, we forget there are people that are following us that we need to connect with and just have conversations with them for the sake of having conversations. Yeah. So not all content is created equal. You've got to find the right formats and the topics that resonate with you. But I think like if people stick to remembering why we're doing it, like you said, not just like throwing mud on the wall and seeing what sticks. The social media will be a better place.
I love that. I'm glad that you said that, because I think those content pillars, they've got to work well for someone with a certain type of brain. My brain is not that brain. And this is just one of many, many things. This is a whole other episode that I have tried to force my incredibly neurodivergent brain into doing. Like, no, you need content pillars. Today is Tuesday. You must be inspiring. And
no. Exactly. That's exactly the problem with it.
Exactly.
It's time to inspire people.
Right. I know. And then on Friday, I get a really inspiring thought. I'm like, shit, it's Friday.
Shit. It needs to wait.
This isn't the day to be inspiring. How do I make this funny instead? But my listeners have heard me say this so many times. What works for one person is not necessarily going to be what works for you. And so if the content pillars work great for Sally, social media expert, super. Let her use them and let her sell them to everyone that they work for. And if they don't work for you, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean that you have no strategy and what you're doing isn't going to work. You just have to find the strategy that works for you. And that's not the same for everybody.
Yeah. Amen.
All right, there we go. All right. If people want to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
So yeah, as I rejoined social media after my 6-week break, I am mainly split between Facebook and Instagram. So you'll have links to both of those. I use my personal Facebook because Facebook business pages were buried many years ago, so no one really uses them so much anymore.
Same.
Yeah, I accept all like most friend requests on Facebook, and Instagram. I wouldn't say I'm like 80-20 split between Facebook and Instagram. I'd say it's kind of like more like a 50-50 thing. I'm basically very findable. You can, it's not difficult to find me. And I have this I think one of the links that I gave you was to my Facebook group. It's a Facebook group called Get Exposure, for small business owners, entrepreneurs, whatever we want to call ourselves. And at the moment, the focus is very much on having guest experts in there, and just having really interesting conversations like this one about what it's like to run a business.
Awesome. I will put the link for your Facebook group, for your personal Facebook, for your Instagram in the show notes. Everyone can go and connect with you. And you can finish your list of mistakes that we're making on social media. You can publish your top 100 mistakes, and then we'll all come get it. How's that?
Exactly. I was thinking I'm going to repurpose these and turn this into something else, right?
See? Take your own advice.
Like the 6 mistakes, and now everyone wants to know what they are, right?
All right. We'll be waiting very patiently. All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Powerful Women Rising podcast. I hope that you are loving this content as much as I am loving making it. I struggle with podcasts because so often I'm like, I thought you were going to teach me something, and that was actually just a commercial. So I and my guests always aim to bring you actionable content that you can actually use to take your business to the next level. So if you love what you're hearing, please leave a review, follow, like, subscribe, share, do all the things, and then join me over on Instagram to continue the conversation. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next Monday.